Hello everybody. So in this video, I will attempt to explain the entire map of success. The name hasn't been solidified yet, but anyways, I will attempt to explain it all in one go and we'll see how that goes. All right, so mainly I built this map for myself because I was really frustrated with why am I still struggling with things that seem really basic. But as I looked into it, it's not basic at all, right? So give me a second here while I get my whew, anxiety under control. So anyways, just keep going, keep rolling. Okay. So in this map, okay, anxiety is kind of fogging up my brain a little bit, but that's okay. Just keep on going. All right. This is a map that can help you get to pretty much anywhere you want in life. And it also maps out the blocks that I was experiencing in my life as I was trying to achieve anything at all, right? So, as basic as it gets, I realized that to gain success in life, it is as simple as getting from point A to point B, right? That's it. That is what success means. And of course, to get to point B, we need to overcome any obstacles in between. So the first step to any sort of success is knowing where you want to go, right? So I needed to know where I wanted to go. And it's taken me a long time to narrow that down. And so for my life, my point B is to become a world class life coach. So that is my point B that I'll be using for this explanation, right? Okay, well, then we have to figure out where we are. So the starting point, right? So if we're on a road trip, we need to know where we are, point A. We need to have a map, and then we also need to know where we want to go, point B. And then we simply take step after step after step until we get there. That is as simple as I can make it, right? Okay, so if success is that simple, why do we not simply keep taking step after step to get to our goals? Well, the answer is it is because we have fallen into the emotional sea and we don't recognize it. Okay, so what is the emotional sea? The emotional sea is this waves of negative emotions that includes an entire story that comes with it, right? So let's just simplify it down to just really challenging emotions. And it's really uncomfortable to feel those emotions. So what I do oftentimes is when I feel those negative emotions, I activate what I call my trauma shields. So that includes um, scrolling through Facebook, includes playing videos or YouTube, Netflix, or playing video games, right? So that all those is simply to keep the emotional sea at bay, right? But as you can imagine, the longer we do that, the bigger the pressure gets. You can only hold it back for so long, all right? Or, um, so give me a second here. Whew, anxiety is so much fun. Yay! So yeah, see, I am currently in the emotional sea partially right now because I am on a live video, and that's just what it is. So instead of falling back and not doing this video, I am instead deciding to push through it. And so I am doing right now what I'm calling emotional strength training, which is simply staying with the negative emotions and keep on moving, right? Okay. So this trauma shield also includes sometimes simply staying in bed, which a lot of mornings, that's simply what I do. Okay. So none of this is to judge ourselves, right? Ooh, okay. Give me a second here. Just my anxiety fog is coming up again, and so I'm just sitting with it. Okay. So the emotional C. Now what? Now what? Okay. Where should I go next? So that's the emotional C. And at some point, we need to cross the emotional C. And we do that by developing emotional strength training. All right. And the four main emotions are the compass to guide us through the emotional C. The important part of the four main emotions is knowing which of the four emotions has captured us. And so we know what to do. I imagine each of these emotions as like a whirlpool. While we can use a whirlpool to slingshot us in the direction we want, a whirlpool could also capture us and hold us captive. Right. So here's the four main emotions and how they work. Super basic, super quick, right? Happiness. So now, happiness here isn't actually what we normally think of as happiness. Happiness here is actually every emotion that moves us forward. This includes cravings, hunger, addictions, right? So this whirlpool is the addiction, the um okay, brain fog again. So just breathing through it and all right, emotional strength training. Woot. Okay. So that's one, happiness, right? So that this is the emotion that moves us forward. Anger. Well, I think we're all pretty familiar with anger. Um this will also capture us and hold us. Right. Okay. Anyways, fear, anxiety, and then sadness, also known as loss. Um, Maybe I'll go back to this, but these are the four main emotions to know which energy is the main wave that has overtaken us in the emotional sea. All right. So I pretty much know if I'm in the emotional sea when I'm not really thinking clearly, when I'm just in the state of either like anxiety, or I'm really mad, just really angry, or I have completely lack of motivation. I don't, you know, or I'm addicted to something, like I'm addicted to a Netflix show or just chasing anything, really, right? So each of these four have a different flavor to it, and it's good to recognize which emotion is at play, or it could be multiple combined, so that makes it tricky. So that's why it's important to be able to break it apart and to address each of the emotions separately, right? So and each of these emotions have a different way of getting out of that trap. So if you're caught inside an anxiety trap, right? The main method that I found to, I mean, there's multiple, but the main one that I found is to find the worst case scenario and make peace with it. That is the most um comprehensive way of that I found to break out of anxiety loops. Okay. Anyways, again, I want to stay surface level and explain this as quickly as I can. All right. So A to B, success is simply as simple as continuously taking steps towards our goal. And we don't take those steps because we have oftentimes fallen into the emotional sea and not recognize it. So once we recognize it, we can work to get out of the emotional sea. And the main tool that I have found that powers me through any sort of emotional blocks is what I call 1/0, which stands for any action towards my goal is better than non-action. So an example is I've been meaning to do this video for a very long time, but I keep putting it off, keep putting it off. So that is the 0. It's simply not doing it. And I found that anxiety and fear hides behind 0, hides behind not doing it. There's so many excuses like, oh, this is not the right time. Or I don't even think of it. That's the tricky part of anxiety, is it puts it into my shadow. And emotional shadow just simply means that it doesn't even exist in my conscious brain. So that's kind of how anxiety hides the actions we need to take because it is scary. Right? So 1/0 tells me that like there's no excuses, right? Even if my hair is not, perfect, doesn't matter. Do it anyways. If I'm anxious and I haven't practiced, doesn't matter. Do it anyways. So 1/0 gives my anxiety nowhere to hide. And so I just keep taking steps. Even though it's probably not going to be as clean as I would want it, it doesn't matter. 1/0. Again, in math, 1/0 also stands for infinity. So that's a fun play on words that was serendipitous. Anyways, okay. This quadrant is all about time. And I found that there's really only, I say 3 types of time here. 3 types of productive time, right? There's a 4th time in which we get stuck in the emotional sea and we're just spiraling. So there's actually 4 types of time. But at the time of writing this or drawing this, I only drew 3 types of time. All right, and the game of this quadrant of time is right here. The goal is to maximize our free time so we can invest it in the things we want to create, right? Just like if we want to invest in with money, we need to have extra money so we can invest. Same thing with time. We need to have extra free time in order to invest it. All right? So there's 3 types of productive time. Let's just call it that, right? We have routines, we have training, and then we just have free time, right? Of the 3, routines are going to be the easiest to optimize. So I focus on that before anything else, right? But then let's say you want to be an Olympic athlete. Let's say you want to be an Olympic level cyclist. What will it take? Well, a lot of training. So that's training. Free time, however, is going to be the trickiest. It's going to be the goal because we're going to build businesses. We're going to build a whole lot of things with free time, but it's tricky. So I'm going to put that off to the side. But as a really quick, anyways, but I did blah, blah, blah. I don't have a smooth transition here, but let me just jump straight into it. All right. I found that there are 4 types of free time. And this should be pretty clear the moment I explain it, right? We can either work or we can play. Simple enough, right? And within work, we can do physical work or we can do symbolic work. So, physical work is like building a physical, literal house that I can live in, right? Symbolic work could be like making the plans for a blueprint of a house. We can't live in the blueprint, but it is the plan to be able to build a physical house, right? So that's a difference between physical work and symbolic work. Same thing with play. We can do physical play like sports, or we can do symbolic play. It's like video games, even like having coffee with friends, watching a play. Like these are all symbolic play. Of course, we can there's combinations of all these different things, but I separate them just so that we can understand the parts of free time. So anyways, that is the game of time, right? So we have three types of productive time: routines, training, and free time, and four types of free time within that. And then if we're not making progress in our goals, it is because we have fallen into the emotional sea and we're spiraling and we don't know how to get out of it, right? So those are the, I guess I should update that. There's four types of time. All right. And within time, that's the vehicle to get to success, right? Is going to be our daily routine. There's nothing more important than our daily routine. Nothing. Because we get this every single day, over and over again. So if we optimize our routines, we have optimized our entire life. So oftentimes when I wake up and I don't feel like doing my routines, that's the trap. It feels mundane. It feels like it doesn't make a difference, but it makes all the difference in the world. Right? So those are one of the emotional traps that tells me that routines are not important. I just want to stay in bed. Those are the emotions to catch and not let it spread, or to understand the misunderstanding of that emotion. Okay, anyways, so in this routine, I actually start my day. This is a little hack that I found. I start my day at nighttime, right? Not in the morning. I start my day at night so that as I plan my day, I can go to sleep with that in mind. And then now I have this dream seed so that my subconscious is working on my entire next day. All right. So this simply represents a visual representation of my routine, right? So I do my nighttime routine, I go to bed, I do my morning routine. Let's say I go to work or whatever it is, the block of free time there. I take lunch, evening work, and then maybe we go to dinner at the end and then we do the whole thing over again, right? So that represents, so I think of this as the vehicle to success. All right. So now, again, success is going from A to B. So for A now, this is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I found a variation that adds a few things to it. So I'm just going to go over this really quick. At the very bottom is basic biological need, right? So if I'm lost in the woods, this is the level that I would be at, right? I need to maintain my physical, biological survival. So this is physical survival right this moment, right? If I don't have any traumatic traumas, I'm not bleeding out, then great, I'm safe for this one moment, right? Okay, so if I'm safe in this one moment, what's next? Well, next is future safety. And that is determined by money, because in this society, money can guarantee actually a lot of things, right? Being able to afford rent, in a safe neighborhood, to buy healthy foods, have the time that we need. So financial safety represents all of, anyways. Sorry, my anxiety fog is, I have another wave of fog that rode in, so just riding that one out right now. Okay. All right. Success is going from point A to point B. And this describes the priority that we need to have in life, right? First is physical safety. Second is financial safety. So safety in time, not just today, but tomorrow and the day after, the next month, the next year, etc. Okay. So now so this represents the money side here, guarantees everything under that. So now, even having enough money, that's not quite enough for us to be fulfilled and happy. Right? If we have all the money in the world, but we don't have friends and we don't have family and we don't have people to share it with, our life is going to feel hollow. Right? So the next level that we need to satisfy is the love and belonging need. Right? So that is represented by the heart here. Right? So let's say you have that, right? So even somebody who makes pretty decent money and has a decent family, they're still gonna want that next thing. And that next thing is something that is uniquely their own, right? Something that is they are the best in the world at, or something like that. So this is the need for personal significance, personal power. All right. So anywhere below this line right here is what is called a deficit need. So if you don't have any one of these things, you're going to feel like there's something lacking within you, right? Anywhere above this is, let's just say, their bonus needs, right? So let's think of somebody who has plenty of money, you know, have a great family, and is pretty darn good at what they do and they love it, right? Okay, so what does that person do now? Well, they have kind of succeeded in life, So what do most people do? Well, they have fun, they play. But there's really only so much you can do, Like millionaires and billionaires, like after a while, you burn through everything that's fun. And now that becomes hollow, right? So then what do people do after that? Well, they either contribute to science, right? Or they do art. So those are the two things on top of that. Again, these are not necessarily like better or worse. These are just dependent on all the other things underneath it. Right. Okay. Anyways, so they either work on art or they work on science, or they work on self actualization. So self improvement, working on our our own internal shadow work, our fears, our phobias, those kind of things, right? Our self expression. So these are all self actualization work. Or if you want to play the even bigger game, to try to help with collective actualization. Now, this is going to be the hardest and the biggest game. And if you don't have your own self actualization, at least at a decent level, or if any of these other foundations are lacking, it's going to be really hard to maintain work in collective actualization when we don't have enough money for rent, or if we don't have friends, or if we don't understand what our own personal power is, right? So it is important to have a solid foundation, and this is the best map that I've found that simply lays it all out. Okay, another version that I've found is the health wealth relationship. So I learned this through, I think it was like a marketing or some sort of seminar, right? And they gave us this advice of, hey, talk about these three things and you will pretty much connect with anybody in the room, right? So talk about health, wealth, and or relationships. So I heard that and I was like, great, let's just put that into a circle. And so we have to do all these three things simultaneously. We have to keep these three things in balance. So now imagine that we have our health, right? Imagine that we have our wealth. Imagine we have great relationships. You know, our life is probably pretty darn good if we have these three things. So that's why this is in a wheel and not, in a straight pyramid style. Okay. So, health I think of as my literal health right now, in my body. The next level to health is our mental emotional health. Seems pretty straightforward, right? So wealth I think of as literal money in my bank account or my wallet right now that I can pull and I can instantly use. Well, what is the next level to that is the thing that will refill that wealth, right? So it would be our job, our career, or our business. Straightforward enough, right? Okay. Relationships, close relationships, immediate family. The next level, I would imagine, is our network. Could be business, could be social, spiritual, etc. All right. So that's a second tier, I suppose. Now, the 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 biggest tier is when I imagine what is the biggest game I can play in that arena, right? So within the health and mental emotional health arena, I imagine the biggest game I could play would be if everything in my life was an embodied spirituality. So like my job is one thing, which also includes me working out, being healthy, connecting with people. So everything is really just one thing. I do my job is a part of meditation. So everything is just one thing. For wealth, I imagine I am on my life purpose. I found my life purpose and or I've created it that is uniquely my own. Now for the relationship part, the interesting thing is, what if we're all family? What if we're all just bodhisattvas, just hanging around a fire, just shooting the breeze? There's nothing to do. I mean, there is things we could do, but nothing we have to do, right? So this is what I imagine as like the highest tier for relationships. So I try to expand my rings as I go along in life. Okay, so that is point A, where we are. So we need to be honest with ourselves with where our health, wealth, relationships is, the status of that, and where we are in the pyramid, the foundation of our life, right? And for here, this is my favorite metaphor for coming to terms with our past. I don't want to go into blame. I don't want to go into like shame of myself either. So what I realize is, and I heard this somewhere on a podcast or somewhere, I don't remember where, but I had to capture it, right? I imagine that before any of us came into existence, quote unquote, I don't know what happened before that, but the metaphor that I heard was we have either won or lost a soul drop lottery. Like it's not personal. We get dropped into our own personal crucible. And for some, the crucible is really smooth and we just fall right through and we're fine and, cool. For some, the crucibles are absurd. And it's not anybody's fault, you know. And for some people, they've lost the soul drop lottery, and some people don't ever make it out of the crucible. It simply kills them, and that's how it is. Cool. It's hard to talk about, but this is the cleanest way that I have found without blaming anyone to come to terms with the crucible that I fell into. And now, even if you come out of that and we land here, we still have to figure out what to do with the rest of our life, you know? So this could be our childhood, our traumas, our past. Okay, again, this is a map to becoming world class at something. And to become world class, we have to pick a hill to climb, right? So the very first step is to choose a hill. If you can't choose a hill, I suggest trying out many, many different hills before you double down on one, because you're going to be on this one for a very long time. And if you switch hills, maybe you can carry over some of the gains that you've learned, but for most part, you're going to have to start over. If you want to be an Olympic level cyclist, you're going to be on that bike for a very long time. And if you happen to switch over to, golf, then you're going to have to start all over again, right? So that's why picking a hill and staying on it is going to be absolutely critical. Okay, so even if you pick your hill, there's going to be 4 main blocks that will stop you. And I think of these blocks as like levels in the game. So now these levels are invisible unless you see them mapped out like this. And that is what caught me in the past, is not realizing that these are levels in the game and they get harder and harder. So whenever I hit one of these traps, I would freak out and I would think that, oh, maybe I'm not meant to take this path or something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. It is simply the way it is. You just have to overcome it, right? So these are the 4 main barriers that stop us from becoming world class. Number 1, distraction, right? If you want to be a world class cyclist, but you do soccer one day, and then you do golf another, and then you do curling the third, you're never going to become world class. Just won't, right? So the first one is distraction. That will take you out. This is the ooh shiny trap. All right. So the second trap is, let's say you're not distracted. Like, okay, I'm doing this. I know what I'm doing. Right. For me, I'm going to be a world class life coach. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Oh no, I've fallen into the second trap. And the second trap is fear. So this includes all my self doubt, everything, right? Like, I'm not good enough. Do I have enough knowledge? Who's gonna, pay me? All sorts of fears. And it's uncomfortable being here. It feels really uncomfortable unless you can flip the script and treat it like an adventure sport, like leaning into it. But if you can't do that, we often drop back into distraction, right? Because we don't like to feel this fear, and then distraction will wash us out. We're done. We're not going to be world class, right? So same thing here, right? Fear is part of the emotional C. We can't handle the anxiety feelings, and then we drop back and activate our trauma shields, and now we're stuck in distraction land. Okay. All right, so how do we get over fear? is the realization that you I cannot wait until there is no fear. That's simply not how it works. We take all of it with us. We carry it, right? So again, that's 1/0. I feel the anxiety. Cool. Do it anyways. Even if my emotions are saying, like, oh, I'm not good enough, I tell myself, cool. I'm somebody who feels like I'm not good enough, and I do it anyways. Or like, oh, I definitely couldn't do that. Well, I'm somebody who feels like I couldn't do that, and I do it anyways. And I keep doing it. Cool. No, it doesn't stop you, but only not doing it will stop you. That's it. So that's why it's called 1/0. 0 is the only thing that will stop us completely. So, right. So that's the way through fear, is to realize that we have to take it with us and not wait until we feel no fear. That will never happen. That will only happen after we've done the task, right? So confidence only comes after we've done the action. So if we wait for confidence, we'll never do it. It will never get done. And that washes out. Okay. Next trap. All right. So let's say I'm focused. I feel the fear. I'm doing it anyways. Cool. All right. I'm going to do it. I'm doing. Oh my goodness. How, what do I do? Where do I start? There's so many things. You know, maybe if I want to be a cyclist, that could be pretty simple. Like I just stay on a bike and just train or something. Well, we still need to hire a trainer or something like that. But anyways, but to become a world class life coach, I need to build out a whole business. I need to build, the entire framework. I need to learn how to coach, how to, so many things. Marketing, like I have to do everything. So the next block is overwhelm. Again, overwhelm feels terrible and then fuels my self doubt, which then makes me want to drop back into distraction, which then washes me out. So, does that make it really clear now? Like, why we haven't continuously taken steps over and over again to get to where we want? It is because we have fallen into emotional sea and we've activated our trauma shields, and now we're stuck here because we can't handle the challenging emotions. Okay, so level 3, overwhelm. The way through overwhelm is two parts. One is realizing that overwhelm, the feeling exists, but overwhelm is not actually real. It is like a phobia. So it's simply because I don't know how to do it yet. Our brain freaks out. For somebody who does it all day long, they're not going to get overwhelmed. Like if I want to build a house, like a physical house, I'm going to get overwhelmed because I don't know where to start. But for somebody who does build houses all day long, they know exactly how to do it, when to plan it out, what materials to get. They won't be overwhelmed. To realize feeling overwhelmed is not a sign that we should turn back or that our goal is wrong, right? So, two parts. One, realizing overwhelm is not real. And two, realizing that energy, the effort, is not required. So, what do I mean by that? Okay. I have noticed there's a subtlety in emotional effort. Like, when there's something that does not take emotional effort. Things like getting up and turning on the light. I flip a light switch. It takes no emotional effort whatsoever and takes very minimal physical effort. For me, washing dishes doesn't take any emotional effort. I know what to do. I've done it million times. I just do it. And some people, you know, call this like going through the motions, you know, like when we're really bored at work. It's really easy. Like I used to work retail, and you do the same thing, you know, you scan people, you say, "Hi, how's it going?" You know, you ring people up. It's really boring. So we are emotionally absent. We're in vacation land, but our body is still there going through the motions, you know. That's what I kind of mean by saying effort is not required. Because when we think that we need to put effort in, I start burning out. And this is going to be an ongoing practice. It's not going to, like, even now, I'm not able to instantly let go of emotional effort and just go through the motions, you know? But it's a practice. It is possible, you know? Okay. Ooh, I'm getting a little tired, but I'm going to keep on charging through. All right. So the third level in the game is called Overwhelm, and we need to, and part of the game is overcoming this level in the game, right? All right. Now, the fourth block that will stop us from becoming world class is motivation, or more specifically, the lack of motivation. And I call this the gym challenge, right? So, my example for this level is like going to the gym. Let's say we want to be healthy and we want to go to the gym, right? We may get distracted, but let's say we're not distracted. Are we really afraid of the gym? Most people are not, right? Are we overwhelmed? Well, do we know what to do? Well, yes. Get on the treadmill and just stay on it, or whatever, you know, get on the treadmill, the bike, whatever. So so we're not overwhelmed because it's really simple. We're not afraid of it. We know where it is. Why do we still not do it? Motivation. Okay. The way through motivation is to realize that we cannot wait for motivation before we do things. We have to build it into a habit, and we have to build it into a routine. And then we just do that routine. We let go of emotional effort. We just do it. We don't need to struggle. There may be struggle, but just realize that the struggle is just extra. It's unnecessary. It's like holding on to a backpack that you could have just like put down. You could do the same. Anyways, okay. The way through motivation is through habits, is to not wait for motivation, just like not waiting until fear goes away, and just 1/0 every single day, do one little step towards our goal. That's it. Okay. So those are the four main blocks. What happens after that? Well, this now, I use the example of a tattoo artist, right? So to become a tattoo artist, it's actually really hard. You know, there's a lot of gatekeeping. You have to go through internships and practicing on people. You know, like there's no mistakes. But if you get through all the different fears and you actually get to a shop, you know, and you're getting paid, you know, so it is now maintaining all the parts of us. It is now a career. We have entered now deep practice, which means it can self-sustaining. Now, the only thing that will take us out after we get into deep practice is burnout, right? Or injury. So now, okay. Give me a second here. I'm getting a little tired, but all right, let's keep going. Ooh. Endurance is not the lack of tiredness, it's feeling the tiredness and doing the act anyways. I've been adapting that as a tool to push through tiredness, because otherwise that will usually take me out as well. Okay, so deep practice. Getting to deep practice means you're getting paid for what you do, what I do, and then it's self-sustaining on all levels of our life. And at that point, all we have to do is just keep on improving a little bit at a time, and eventually we will become world class. So that is the 5 levels of the game that we need to overcome. All right. So I've written these bits out to remind myself the goal that I'm always aiming to is to get into this flow state where, anyways, whew, my brain is not flowing super well right now, but that's okay. All right, just keep moving on. I remind myself anytime I get lost, I'm off the path, or I've got caught in the emotional sea for days at a time. What do? This is the line I tell myself. Got lost? Okay. Go easy on myself and get right back on the path. That's it. Beating myself up isn't going to help anything. The only thing that will help is getting right back on the path and take that very next step. That's it. That's all there is to it. Okay. And what else is here? Okay. Effortless actions. Well, I'm working on letting go of emotional effort and just doing the thing. Just do it. Don't need to struggle about it. Just, with this live video, just turn it on and see what happens. You know, success is not guaranteed, but just do it. The struggle is not, it's not necessary. I've also found that we have an autopilot, which is our habits. As I am continually practicing my routines and just, I have a game where I try to get through my routine as fast as possible. And after a while, my routines chain together, so I just do one thing after another, and it just becomes effortless. It's just on autopilot. So now, when it's on autopilot, I can take mini vacations while my body is doing the things I needed to do, brushing my teeth, doing dishes, whatever. I can even put on an audiobook and take a micro vacation and just have my autopilot do all the actions I needed to do. Okay, so those are the 2 things here. Okay, now for the last 4th quadrant to this side. Well, there's still this up here, but I'll talk about that later. Okay. Now for this quadrant, describes the things we need to do for success. I've already described the emotional sea. So first step is to be able to get out of the emotional sea and start doing 1/0 and just start taking steps towards our goals. So now this here describes what we need to do. It also describes what I believe to be where free will exists. So here's the tricky part about free will. If we want a goal, the actions we need to do to achieve those goals are not optional. So here's the example. There's 2 examples I use, right? Example 1. If you want to have healthy teeth, is brushing your teeth optional? Well, I would say no. If I want healthy teeth, I have to brush my teeth. That's not optional. We don't have to have teeth. But if you want teeth, then brushing our teeth is not optional. You see where the choice is, right? If we want the goal of maintaining healthy teeth, then the actions required is not optional. If we let go of the goal, sure, then the action is now optional. Example 2. Let's say we have a job that requires us to commute to work, you know, and we want to keep that job. Is that commute optional? No, I mean, I kind of stacked the question on that one, But if we have a job that requires us to commute and we want to keep that job, that's the goal, then the commute is not optional. But here, but what is optional is the story we tell ourselves while we are driving to work. Okay? So, example 1, we can drive like a maniac, just honking left and right, being pissed off in traffic, just cutting people off, just overall, just causing a lot more negative karma in the world. However, as long as we get to work on time and we do our job well, of course, is our boss really going to care how, how we drive? Probably not, you know. As long as we get to work on time and we do our work properly, our boss doesn't care. Example now for the very same drive, right? Imagine that I'm taking my time, I am flowing, being one with the universe, with traffic, and I usually put on like a Ram Dass talk and just let it seep into my subconscious. I, let people in. I'm I smile, I try to just make people's day a little better left and right, you know? So now the same commute, same result, and I still get to work on time, right? Same physical result, utterly different universe. The first universe is where I'm just driving like a maniac and pissing everybody off, including myself. The second universe is me just accepting the world as it is, being one with traffic, listening to Ram Dass, letting people in to traffic when they need it. So this is where I believe free will exists. It's the story we tell ourselves while we do the actions that are not optional, assuming we want the goal. So again, this whole map is to assume that we want to achieve success, because we can always drop the goal and there is nothing to do. That is part of the teachings of Buddhism. But now the question is, if you want to achieve the goal, but at the same time, we want to have a great time doing it and not struggle, this is the map that I've worked out of how to do that. Right? So, where we do have free will is the story we tell ourselves of why we're doing what we're doing. So that is the hero's journey. Do I see myself as a hero going to work, or do I see myself as a victim who have to go to work because of X, Y, and Z, whatever. Okay. So here on the left side, I put routines because that is the easiest part to optimize. We do this every single day. I made this observation where it's like, why do I struggle every morning when I do the same darn thing every single day. And I think of myself as smart. Like, if I'm so smart, why am I still struggling? It's silly. So I've sat down and I created, this to understand why I'm still struggling, right? So, because I had not yet locked down my routines. Okay, so routines are the easiest to optimize and they make the most difference in our life because we do it over and over and over again. So, any improvements we do in our routines gets compounded every single day of our lives. So that's why they're so important and they're the easiest to optimize. So that's why this is the foundation layer. The next layer is working on getting our free time, our work physical and work symbolic. However, free time is really, really hard. So I have not included it here. That is, I'm actually working on mapping that out now, which includes project management, um, flushing out our visions, and then working backwards to create different projects that are achievable. But for now, I'm going to put that aside because that is really, really hard. We can talk about business, creating a business. We can talk about science. There's so many things to talk about in here that is a universe in itself. So for now, let's work on solidifying our routines, recognizing when we have fallen into the emotional sea and we're just spiraling. We're not doing the things we tell ourselves that we should be doing. Even though in the end, we don't really have to do anything. You gotta understand that. That is true. When we let go of goals and striving, we can be in just this one moment and be zenned out and be perfect, and that's okay. But assuming we do want success and we do want anything, this is the map of how to do it. Okay. Um so this is like the biggest map possible. Well, this is the biggest map possible, but I'm going to pause this for a second. This is the biggest map for day to day. So this maps the things that block us from taking progress every single day. This is the biggest map, right? Okay. This is the smallest map possible. This is what I call my MMA practice. Moment by moment awareness. There is nothing else in life except one moment after another moment after another moment. So at this point, this is all I'm doing every single day, every single moment. Okay, what does this entail? This is my symbol for moment by moment awareness. The one thing that we always have is our breath. There's so many different spiritual practices out there. They're endless and they almost all of them talk about breath, right? That's because that's the one thing that we always have access to. I've also found a second thing we always have access to, and this becomes the master switch slider bar to controlling my emotions, and that's our speed. I've found that I can slow down my speed. I can slow down my thoughts. I can slow down my breath. And as I slow everything down, it helps me ground everything. So that is the master control, master dial for emotions. The other two things I've added as a reminder is I always want to work on my posture because it takes so long for me to make any sort of improvement on it, that I have to continuously work on it. And I always have my posture everywhere. So any improvement I make on my posture is going to stick with me my entire life. So that's why this is here. And the last thing to remind myself is to let go of emotional effort. It's not required, it's just extra baggage. I can just go through the motions. My body can just do the things I need, and I don't need to struggle on top of it. Okay. I've added these tsunami warnings. So, this is an alert that goes off in my brain whenever I feel this big emotional wave that just takes me over, right? I'm just going to leave that at that right now. Okay. On this side is things I can do to, instead of having the wave take me over, I can create my own wave by, playing music or putting on an audiobook or watching a movie or something like that, right? Anyways, so that's that. So now the next part of this is to realize that, ooh, my brain is again getting tired, but endurance means not the absence of tiredness, but feeling the tiredness and doing the action anyways. Okay. Whew. I sink into kind of meditation. But as I was looking into meditation, what is meditation? To me, it is sitting with nothingness. It's to stop all actions. But then this argument or whatever came to me. It's like, where do thoughts come from? The moment before I think something, it seems to come from nothing. And in the very beginning, the cosmic beginning, something came from nothing. That's at least the logical argument for it, right? So if that is true, something comes from nothing, then therefore, nothingness must be the all mother of creation. So I'm just playing around with ideas here, right? So instead of fighting nothingness and silence and the void, right? I imagine it as going for a visit with the All Mother. Just like, hey, how's it going? You know, thanks for giving me my thoughts. And the way I listen to the All Mother is to her language, is the language of silence. So I try to imagine nothingness not as like nothing, but as the source of all things, as the source of all love, all ideas, all possibility. That is the same as nothingness. So this is part of my MMA practice, is to first trigger this chain by remembering my breath, and then I slow the breath down, work on my posture, and that chains to working on letting go of emotional effort, and then I drop into nothingness. I say hi to the All Mother, and I listen to her voice, which is silence. And I just let that peace wash over me of all possibilities, all lovingness, everything. Okay. But I can't stay there forever, right? Because I want to play this game. Wait, what game? This game. This is a fun little acronym that I've appropriated. The game of the MMO game, the massive multiplayer on Earth game. Yep. I did that. Mm-hmm. So I imagined myself dropping out of the void from nothingness continuously. And I drop into my action body. Kind of, I treat my body like a mech suit, like, cool, move my fingers. I can move my head, move my sensors. Okay, so now I'm in my action body, right? And at any time, success comes down to two words: action and time. At any moment, there's only one and one action alone that we're doing. Like right now, I'm talking to a microphone while I'm pointing stuff out here. That's what I'm doing right now, right? And the game is to keep this one dot on the most optimal path. So I call that the critical path. So that's the game, right? To continuously be doing the right things. And for me, that's my routine here. This is my whole routine. I can reorganize this at any time. But again, my day starts at 9 p.m. So I mentally shift over to the next day and start planning my next day after 9 p.m. So I do all the routines I need for nighttime. So I'm completely ready by sometime around 10 p.m. Now I have 2 hours in the evening to do whatever I want. I can brainstorm, I can relax, I can do anything, right? And I oftentimes plan my next day, and I go into sleep with that dream seed so that my subconscious can start working on my entire next day. Right? Now, in the mornings, this is my biggest struggle. That's just how it is for me. So I try to make it a game where I move through my morning routine as fast as possible. All right. And then I have about, let's say, I finish that at 10 a.m. I have 2 hours of time I can work on something. Let's say lunch takes an hour. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Let's just say regular work hour, 5 p.m. All right, done with work. Let's go home, do whatever evening routine I need to do, or after work afternoon routine. Then comes dinner, right? And then we usually have about, okay, so let's say dinner, blah, blah. Okay, 5 to 6, 6 to 7 is like dinner, 7, 8, 9 is kind of the, maybe hang out, watch a movie, sports, news, whatever. This is our evening relaxation time. And that's my day, right? So now I can instantly see exactly where my free time is. Again, remember the game is always to maximize the free time and then invest it. So this part is maximizing my free time is by optimizing my routines as tight as possible and not have it bleed into everything else. And also be aware of when I get trapped in the emotional sea and now I'm burning up my time spinning in circles. Okay. That is pretty. Oh, okay. So let's say I've done my routine. Now, how do I spend my free time? This is kind of where I put a pause here because this is start. Free time management is very, very tricky. So that's why All this is simply to lock down everything besides the free time management. And to and I'm starting to map that out now, so stay tuned for that. However, this really helps me when I don't know what I should be doing. So this is kind of like a checklist. So I call this the 4 frames of reality. Each frame doesn't reduce down to the other frames. Okay. We have our physical frame, right? That's literal physical things, literal microphone in front of me, literal body that I'm in. My and I go from closest to furthest is how I prioritize, right? So anything that's on my body has the highest priority. And then my room that I spent every day in, my house, my car, my tools, my supplies that gets diminished, and then food, water, etc. Right? So physical things. So anytime I'm doing laundry, washing dishes, brushing my teeth, this is all within the physical plane. So maybe I should call it planes of reality. Anyways, okay, physical plane. Maybe I should do planes. Anyways, okay. The next frame here is the symbolic frame. So now the symbolic frame maps onto the physical, just like Google Maps. Google Maps maps real physical reality, but we can put an imaginary house in Google Map that doesn't exist in reality, right? So symbolic realm maps onto the physical, but goes beyond it, right? We can have, for example, we can have a map of like a lizard. We have a map of bat wings, and we have a map of fire, and we can put all those 3 maps together, and we call that a dragon. You know, dragons don't exist in reality, but we can combine the maps of physical things in different ways, and we can make the fantasy realm. So, fantasy realm exists in the symbolic. So, I represent this by the 3 ways we can store symbolic knowledge. We can store it in our brains, or chemicals, emotions, biologically. We can store it digitally, and we can store it analog. So, like a physical book, a literal physical map, a stone carving, right? So, those are all analog ways of storing symbolic knowledge. So, this is the symbolic plane. But that is not enough. These 2 realms of reality is not enough. There is the experiential plane. I really should call this planes of reality. Anyways, yeah, cool. And science has a really hard time trying to explain consciousness, of how consciousness is even possible in the brain, right? But for us to even have that question, we need to have a person asking that question to begin with. So experiential is our experience of life from the inside out, right? So this is a very different realm of reality than just purely physical or purely symbolic. So I put all the emotions and the challenges that we face here, because our emotional challenges only arise in the moment, in the now. So the MMA practice exists right here, right in the experiential realm. But that alone is also not enough to explain our world as a human, right? So the way I explain this realm is, so I am a universe in myself, in my brain. I'm mapping so many things and projecting a reality that I see, right? So if I am a universe in myself, and this other person is also a universe in themselves, what happens when we put multiple universes together and they interact, right? The complexity explodes. That is why we have so much challenges we have today, but it's also why we have all the things we have, is because we've done it socially. We've collaborated with one another. All right. So between these four frames of reality, it pretty much covers at least my experience of my time on this planet. I am in my experiential world all the time. I track my physical things. Have I maintained all my physical assets? Washed my car, done exercise, acquired new tools so I can do new things. Symbolically, friends, have I kept up with my friendships, my family, etc.? So I use this kind of like a checklist to make sure I'm not missing anything, right? And in the end, all we ever have, ever, is the actions we take in this one singular dot of time. And as long as we put this one dot, where we need to, and continuously take steps after step, we're going to eventually get to success. All right. Now, these are some of the biggest transformations. I don't really know what to call them, so I just put them here off to the side as notes, right? The three rules are my solution to the morality problem. Like, what is moral or immoral, more specifically? These three rules are the cleanest that I have figured out to summarize it. Number one is really the only rule: don't initiate harm on others, right? That will get you in trouble everywhere. Stealing, hitting somebody, killing somebody, all harms. Rule two, however, it's a very strong reminder, right? Is don't make it easy for others to harm you. So lock your doors, be aware of your situation. Just because we don't initiate harm on others does not mean others would not try to initiate harm on me. So I should be aware to the best of my abilities. We can't stop everything, but we can make it hard for others to harm us. All right. Third is pretty much just a strong, strong reminder, which is all because it is also a harm. Don't use threats as a tool. Just don't do it. It's not good. Don't do it. Okay, cool. So these three rules are the rules I live by. Okay, right. These three rules are also why I have been able to expand my being, for the lack of a better term. It's because I know what is ethical and what is not. If I have not hurt anyone and I've not made it easy for me to be harmed, like giving out my personal information, and I've not threatened anybody, I've not tried to initiate a riot or something like that, then to my own standards, I am moral. I could sing really badly and I've not to myself or somewhere, and even though I feel really wonky and afraid or whatever, self-conscious, I've not hurt anyone. I've not made it easy for others to hurt me, and it is not a threat. Cool. I can do it. Okay. Moment by moment awareness. Again, this is pretty much everything. It's a continuous practice. Right. Critical path is a term I pulled from construction. Critical path means anything that delays the critical path would delay a whole project. So for construction, like if you're building a high-rise building, right? Some things can be done simultaneously. You can put up a window on one side of the building and you can paint another side. They can be done at the same time. But however, both those things may be dependent on a third thing, which is like the foundation, right? Everything depends on the foundation. So any delay in the pouring of the concrete for the foundation, you know, would delay the building of the walls, which then delay, the windows and the paint. So you can even have the contractors ready to put up a window and to paint the wall, but if you don't have the foundation poured and you don't have a wall, they can't do their job, right? So anything that delays the critical path delays the entire project, and you can never make it up. That's why it's called the critical path. So we have to keep an eye on the critical path, and we make sure that does not slip. However, other things can become the critical path. Let's say the windows, we had a week to put it up, but if it delays longer than that, it will delay other things. So anyways, so critical path is a way to organize where we put our attention on. My brain is burning up now, so okay. Cool, critical path. Moving on. Magic of the mundane. I've noticed that the mundane is not real. Nothing is actually mundane. We're simply gotten used to it. So the mundane is both a spell, like a magic spell, and it's also not real. So I remind myself that I'm either putting magic back into the mundane, so I pretend like my life is, is a hero's journey. I can pretend I'm doing magic spells like right now, and that it is causing, a wave of whatever. So, anyways, magic. I'm putting magic back into the mundane, and I'm also chipping away at the spell of the mundane, and reminding myself that mundane is not real. Okay, double time log is the one tool that I have found that is the most useful to help me stay focused. So here's how the double time log works, right? So I do this on my phone. And so I can type, kind of have to type it out. Okay, so here it is. The now moment is right here. So I usually put the date. So today is December 8th, 2022, right? And I put future me here and past me. Before I do something, I put it in my future log, and it always grows out from the center, just like the moment grows from the now. Anyways, so let's say I want to brush my teeth. It is 8 a.m., whatever time it is. Dash plan. This is literally how I do it. Dash, and I simply log what my intention is for the next moment. Brush teeth. Now that I've written that, I go and do it. Let's say it is now 8:15 a.m. I literally, this is exactly what I do, right? 8:15 a.m. dash log dash. Now this is a log of what I actually did. So up here is what I intended to do. This is what I actually did. Let's say I brush teeth. Cool. But oftentimes I get distracted, and sometimes it's not 8 a.m. It is like 10 a.m. and I still haven't brushed my teeth. Like, oh my gosh, what did I do? You know? So I try to remember what I did. Like maybe I did Facebook for 30 minutes and then I, went online shopping or something, whatever. So so that's one entry. And then when I go to do the next thing, I simply create a new line. And now let's say it's 10:20 a.m. dash plan dash. Now I ask myself, what do I want to do next? And I look at my to-do list, and sometimes it is wash car, right? So now I go and wash my car or to do that thing. The beautiful part of the double time log is that simply doing it amplifies my awareness of my moment to moment awareness. I am now able to catch when I have gotten distracted, when I've went off into la la land for hours at a time, right? And I can also track what I intended to do. This one tool is single-handedly beating back my ADHD. Like there's nothing better. And at first, if you start trying this, you're going to feel resistance like everything else, right? But here's what I do. I remind myself every single day that I use the double time log, my day goes great because I'm actually seeing what I'm doing. I'm seeing my intentions. And at the end of the day, I can see what I've done. I can see how it has lined up with my intentions. I cannot state more how important this one tool is for my life. So this is called the double time log. It's so simple, right? It is simply a time log, but I add a log of my intentions as well, and it grows out from the center. That's why it needs to be digital, so I can, create a new line for my next intention. 11 a.m. dash plan dash wash dishes. So whenever I feel distracted or I feel whatever, I use the double time lock to lock down my time and be utterly aware of it. Okay, so that's the double time lock. Dual non-duality. Ooh, okay, this is too big for me to explain, but this is on a reality level. Anyways, I'm gonna leave that alone. It's my play on collapsing duality and non-duality together, that it is both dual and non-dual at the same time. Anyways, okay. Micro steps. This is pretty much 1/0. Just if I feel overwhelmed, oh, this is another tool for overwhelm. If I feel overwhelmed, it doesn't matter. Find the next smallest little action you can take towards your goal and just do that. And once you do that, you do the next micro steps, and that will push you through overwhelm. Next tool is one of the most powerful tools that I use all the time is blanketing all possibility space. Let's say I want to ask somebody out on a date and I'm terrified or whatever. There's really only two possibilities. Yes, no, maybe a maybe, but that's usually a no, right? Yes, no. Cool. That's it. So as long as I'm okay with the no and I'm okay with the yes, that's all there is to it. So I use this to pretty much sweep aside my anxieties and just plan for all possible outcomes. And I'm done. Some outcomes I can't plan for, and I simply have to accept those. Let's say, I drive my car and I go get into a wreck. Oops, I can't plan for that. Okay, well, I have to accept that risk. Otherwise, I don't drive. If I drive, I have to accept that risk. That's all there is to it. Cool. I know it's easy to say, but it's a lot harder in practice, but that's okay. Okay. Role model. I've realized that this word has disappeared from our everyday, my everyday reality. Like everywhere I see, there's this movement where we don't want to be better than anyone, which is true. We're on on a being level, nobody's better or worse than anyone. However, we do still need role models for what works. So, I'm bringing this word back. The goal is not to be better than someone else, but the goal is to become a role model, to become the example of what is possible. So, in that way, we can strive to be the best person we can be without being better than anyone and being arrogant and pushing people down, but also owning that what we do has a significance and influences other people. Right? Okay. With great wealth comes great responsibility. I think you can recognize this quote as with great power comes great responsibility. What I realize is with great wealth also comes great responsibility. This is how, this is the contract we make with the universe that when I gain tremendous wealth, it also comes with the cost of great responsibility. So if I'm not willing to use my wealth responsibly and making sure everybody else's life is better, I have no business holding that much wealth. Right? So this is the solution to the moral quandary of having great wealth. Okay. 0 point energy is this idea, again, that action does not require emotional effort. Like in the mornings when I'm really tired, I can go one of two ways through it. I can use effort and determination, be like, oh, I'm gonna get up and just power through it. It's possible. That's what most people do, and that's what I've been told. But I've played around with this idea of what if I kept my brain asleep? What if I just let it be tired, let my emotional brain be tired? Can I still move my body? It's like, wait, I can move my body. What if I just keep my brain asleep and I move my body to getting out of bed? And I try that and like, oh, it works. And then like, what if I keep my brain asleep and I make my bed? It's like, oh, I could do that. So the cool thing is, I think we can do actions without using any emotional energy. And the question is, where does that energy come from? I don't know, you know, but it's from somewhere. And I asked my brain, what term should I call this? My brain came up with this term 0 point energy. And apparently, this is a term from quantum, which is like the lowest quantum states, like absolute zero. But this is nothing to do with quantum. I'm just appropriating the word because that's what my word my brain came up with. So this is the idea of 0 point energy, which is actions without emotional effort. Okay. Here is a reminder that time is an emotion, right? There's never anything more than or less than this one singular moment. But sometimes a moment feels really long, and sometimes a moment goes by real fast, right? So when time is dragging and I'm impatient, it feels so long. I remind myself, like, hold on a second. Time is not actually real. It is this one singular moment that feels really long and I just want to be somewhere else. So, time, that feeling of time is actually an emotion, and it's actually part of the emotional sea where I want to not be in the now. I want to be faster. I want to be later, but that's all pushing me away from the now. So that's why time is an emotion, is an awareness that helps us break that, to overcome that. Okay, anyways, now the reason I put this into a spiral is because this is the most powerful transformation that the moment I heard it, my mind grasped onto it and used it to transform everything. Because in like Buddhism, in Zen practice, in so many other traditions, they talk about now is the only time that ever exists. At the same time, they talk about now is absolutely perfect. There's nothing to do, right? Enlightenment is realizing that there's nothing you have to do, that reality is perfect the way it is. But hold on a minute here. If everything is perfect, why would I bother making my life better? Why would I bother striving for things? Well, here is the collapse. Here is the solution to that dilemma. Everything is perfect, including the journey we take to make our life better, to overcome our phobias, our anxieties. And to have a journey, you need to have a destination. The destination determines the steps you take and which direction you walk. But at the same time, we're walking, the point is not to get to the end goal, right? Just like a video game, you know, if there's this really amazing video game that we've been looking forward to, like just, anyways, if there's a video game that we've been really looking forward to, let's say we get it, and then within the first moment, you jump on the first opponent, you beat the littlest guy, whatever, and you win the game. Would you feel like you've won the game, or would you feel like you've been cheated? Because the game is about playing it full out, to be fully engaged in it. That's the fun of the game, not to beat it. But yet, the game is also about beating it, but it's actually about playing it. So, therefore, the journey is the destination. The journey, the moment, the striving, being in the moment is the goal. So, therefore, moment by moment awareness and playing the game full out, getting my action body doing the right thing at the right time is the goal, is the game. And to appreciate the moments while we're in it and not wait until we get to the destination before we celebrate and enjoy life, right? So, this is one of the most powerful transformation that I have ever found. And so I represent that by the spiral. And the spiral is pretty much everywhere as a reminder. This collapses the journey and the destination into one singular point, which is also what moment by moment awareness does. But yet we also plan to do the right things. But while we're doing the right things, our physical body could be doing the right things, like exercising and washing dishes. Our mental body can tell a different story. Like, we're not a victim. We don't have to wash the dishes. We are a superhero washing dishes with magic spells or something. Anything, you know? The story is on a different plane than the physical actions we do for success. Okay. And last but not least here, oh, there's other things here. Okay. Um, emotions. The grammar is a little weird. Emotion is a comparison. I don't want to argue this too long, but this everything is a comparison. Ooh, I don't have a ready explanation for this. I will explain that another time, but this is also critical understanding emotions. Okay. Anyways, okay. Last two little things. Intuition. Oh man, I'm really tired. Okay. Whew. Endurance is not the absence of tiredness, but feeling the tiredness and doing the actions anyways. Okay. That is my adaptation of courage, right? The definition of courage is not the absence of fear, but feeling the fear and doing the actions anyways. Likewise, endurance, like a marathon, is not about the absence of tiredness, it's feeling the tiredness and doing the action anyways. Okay. The two things to keep aware of in life is if we are in avoidance, which is if we avoid negative emotions and we keep chasing the highs, the emotional highs, it will lead us into a vicious cycle and take us down. Okay? Inversely, there's also the possibility of triggering a virtuous cycle in which we're doing the right things, like locking down our habits, eating well, sleeping well, drinking water. It will make everything in our life easier and easier, which then just makes us want to do the next improvement, which will then make our life even easier. And this is called a virtuous cycle. So it's possible to trigger a virtuous cycle. And that is the goal of this whole game. So it's simply doing the right actions at the right time. All right. And calibrated intuition. I think of intuition as our subconscious supercomputer. It's not always right, but it errs on in predictable ways. And science has already mapped out where emotions often err. And we call these logical fallacies, um, biases. Example is the gambler's fallacy, right? Let's say we've lost 10 times. It doesn't mean that the 11th time we're going to win. The odds are the same. Or if we won a whole bunch, we want to keep playing because we think we're going to keep winning. That's not true, right? So we got to quit while we're ahead. So our emotions will lead us astray in predictable ways. But as long as we correct for those particular fallacies, we can now rely on our intuition because our intuition is the fastest tool that we have. Again, when we talk about overwhelm, right? I can't plan a full business using just my conscious brain. It's way too much data. So I have to give it to my subconscious and my intuition. And my intuition will spit out a whole bunch of answers. And I have to check it for common known fallacies and errors. And as long as I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not making it easy for others to harm me, and I'm not threatening anyone, I follow that intuition. And even if my intuition was wrong, I just try to correct for it next time. Even if my intuition is wrong, it's the best guess that I have. I'm not going to get any better. I mean, I can also talk to a whole bunch of other people and then ask my intuition of all that data what it tells me I should do, right? So our intuition is pretty much the most powerful tool we have. It is not always perfect, so we have to calibrate it. We want to make sure it's not threatening our physical safety, so it's not harming us. If it tells us to joyride on a motorcycle with no helmet, it's like, that may be fun, but that's too much of a physical risk. Not gonna do it. You know. However, if it's telling me to do live videos and I'm afraid, I'm not actually harming myself, so I do it. So, anyways, um, that is the whole system so far. And so, yeah, emotional fitness training. That's kind of the whole goal of the emotional sea, to lift ourselves, be able to swim in to be able to swim in the emotional sea, to be able to use the whirlpools and not get stuck in them, but we can use them as like slingshots to you know get us to our destination faster. One quick example is like reminder. I remind myself to always put the reward after the work. Let's say I want to watch a show. I always want to do my work first and then watch the show. Don't believe my emotions when it tells me, oh, just watch the show and then I'll do the work. No, absolutely not. I would never feel motivated after. I'm just going to want to watch another show. And now I have fallen into the emotional sea and activated my trauma shield. And now I'm stuck because the work has now become this monster and it feels so good to just keep watching videos. And now I'm stuck. Right. So always tackle the hard stuff first and then use the good stuff as a reward. Okay. So emotional strength training, becoming masters of our emotional sea, learning how to swim, how to get out of the emotional sea, how to not get caught up in the whirlpools, and even how to use the power of the sea to get us to where we need to go, and how to train our emotional dragons to pull us instead of fight us. Oh, and yeah, we are emotional immortals. That is another master key of how to survive the emotional sea. It's the reminder that no matter how bad something feels, look around. As long as my physical body is safe, as long as our physical body is safe, no matter how bad something feels emotionally, it will not kill us. We are emotional immortals. Okay. That's like a safety line that will carry us through safely through the emotional sea. Okay, that's pretty much the whole talk. Yep, it took about 2 hours. Cool. All right, well, at least there's one record of it. I'm not going to talk about this too much. I'm trying to expand the map to include the skills, the resources, the reality frames that we all see, the loops. I'm trying to map the loops that we get trapped in, and hyper loops and hyper tools, which can handle multiple reality frames. But I'm going to put that aside because that's too much right now. Okay, cool. All right, well, that is a summary of the entire map to success, the Enlightened Mastery map. I don't have a perfect name yet, but right. So, success is simply going from point A to point B and blowing through all the obstacles in between. The obstacles are these 4 different emotional traps, or simply the entire sea itself that we get stuck. To gain success, we simply it's a marathon. We keep taking step after step after step towards our goals. And sometimes we get trapped in the emotional sea and we activate our trauma shields and we get stuck here because it feels so good and we're so afraid of the sea. But at some point, we need to drop our trauma shield, stay inside the challenging emotions, and build emotional strength training. Okay? And we use the tool of 1 over 0 to give our anxieties nowhere to hide, to remind ourselves all we have to do is just keep taking step after step. What steps do we take? Well, first, let's lock down our routines, because that's the easiest, to understand the game of time. So there's 4 types of time, right? There's our routines, there's training, there's free time, and then there's just time stuck in the emotional sea. The game, the goal is to maximize our free time and invest. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's 4 types of free time. We can work, or we can play, and we can do physical work, or we can do symbolic work. Physical work, like building a physical house. Symbolic work, like planning a blueprint for a house. Physical play, like sports. Symbolic play, like doing video games. Okay? And then, to become right, time-wise, the most important thing is to focus on our daily routine. This is like our vehicle, like a rocket ship that we ride, to success. Because this is going to happen every single day. So any optimization in the routine compounds every single day we do it for our entire life, right? Okay. So now, what do we do? Well, we need to make peace with our past. And the best way I found to do it is to use this metaphor that we all have gone through the soul drop lottery. And we've dropped into our own personal crucible. And my crucible is not going to be the same as your crucible. Some people's crucibles are super easy. If you're born to a rich family, everything is nice. But that may not be the best. That may not give the person skill to actually be able to handle life on their own, right? Some people's crucibles are just stupidly, it's not their fault. It's terrible, it's awful, full of suffering, and some people just never even survive it. So let's have a lot of compassion for people with terrible crucibles. Yeah, that's it. So, anyways, we drop down through here, understanding that the path we're on is pretty much been laid out by the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and also by the wheel of health, wealth, and relationships. That we got to keep these 3 things balanced while we move up the pyramid in order. And then at some point we need to pick one hill, maybe 2, but generally 1, and we stay on that hill day after day after day until we blow through all these different emotional blocks and obstacles. Beware of long-term burnout, and at some point you will simply become world class. That is the path. There's no guarantees, but everybody that has made it had to have blown through these steps, right? And the best tool I've found is what I called moment by moment awareness. And this is my personal moment by moment awareness. Yours could be very different, right? But mine is I have an automatic alert that tells me when I've been hit by an emotional wave, and that reminds me to lock myself down, to not take regrettable actions. It is the actions that get us into trouble, not the emotions. Example, if I really want to punch somebody, the emotions is not the problem. The fist hitting the other person is, right? So I need to control my body while I let the emotional wave pass and subside. Okay? And the things that I always have control over is my breath and my speed. And I chain that to putting my body in a good posture and working on my posture. I remind myself I can actually control my emotional state to a degree by putting on music or an audiobook while I do dishes or something that doesn't require my brain. So these things stabilize my emotional state. This is a practice that locks me into my moment by moment practice. I anchor myself into quietness and meditation. And I imagine this as visiting the All Mother, listening to her song, which is silence, the all lovingness that is the void from which we came, the perfection from which we came and from which we will return. And when I'm ready, I drop through nothingness into existence, into this game that is all around me, into the massive multiplayer on Earth game. I drop into my action body. I remind myself there's only one action and one action alone at any time that I'm doing. I want to keep this one dot in the optimal place. And I've already mapped out most of what it is. So I have to stay on my routine, right? So I try to get through my routine as quickly as possible and to recognize when I have free time. Once I'm in free time, it gets a lot harder. Now I have to do project management, I have to do planning, thinking, visioning, but that's for a later episode. This is the summary of the foundations to success. Ooh, I do like that. Maybe I'll write that down. Okay. Foundation for success. Cool. And none of this tells you what destination you should be doing. You can pick anything, right? This just tells you how to get there. All right. I hope that helps. That's been a good 2 hours, and now I've done it. All right. Love you all. Hope this helped.